I have to wonder if New York State is the new home for Jim Crow. When I look at the recent cases with involving police officers and black men, it's looking a lot like the Jim Crow South of the 1930s, the 1940s, the 1950s, and the early 1960s. What's the parallel between the two? Both the Jim Crow South and New York State are Democratic strongholds, and in both places, black men's lives were always put at risk. When I look at the case of Eric Garner, who was choked out by a police officer, there has been no action taken by the NYPD or Mayor Bill de Blasio regarding this officer's egregious conduct. This man is still on the payroll of the New York City Police Department 2 years after killing Eric Garner. And when I look at the case of James Blake, who was racially profiled, again, no action to terminate this officer, and still things going at business as usual with Bill de Blasio. When I look at the case of Akai Gurley, even though they got a conviction for manslaughter, the judge decides arbitrarily to throw out the criminal sentence and give him probation. And when you look at these cases, it reminds you a lot of the travesties of justice that went on in your Jim Crow South. Your Jim Crow South and your liberal North are starting to parallel each other. And when you look at the political situation, it is downright disturbing, especially when you think about women like Eric Garner's mother, Trayvon Martin's mother, Sandra Bland's mother, and Tamir Rice's mother endorsing Hillary Clinton. How can these women, after these tragedies that mostly happened in Democratic states and Democratic run areas, go out here and endorse Hillary Clinton? That seems completely backwards. It makes these women not look like they are concerned with what happened to their sons. It makes them look like they are basically mammies pandering for the Democratic Party. And I look at New York State, it is becoming really a lot like this Jim Crow South. But most of these African Americans, they cannot connect the dots and see the eerie parallels between the Jim Crow South and New York City, because I look at these cases and it is downright disturbing. And what's the saddest part is you still have black people still out here endorsing Democratic candidates like your Hillary Clinton, still standing behind dysfunctional Democrats like your Ken Thompson, who pretty much threw his entire black constituency under the bus by advocating for no jail time for Peter Liang, a man who pretty much should have never been a police officer in the first place because he's pretty much incompetent. And you look at these parallels, and it's eerie in how it reminds me a lot of the Jim Crow South. This is again, Democrats controlled the Jim Crow South, and they're controlling New York State. And the parallels between the two should disturb most people, but most black people aren't paying attention to those eerie parallels. Instead, they get emotional, they get upset, and they would rather go out here and march and protest like it's the 1960s instead of coming up with constructive action to gain political power that will enable them to get their platform on the table with everyone else. Because it's clear to me that the Democratic Party does not care about African Americans, is not concerned with African Americans, and black men's lives do not matter to African Americans. When it comes down to African American men's lives, what the Democratic Party believes they can do is pretty much buy the black woman off and then go back to business as usual, because that's what's been going on in the cases of people like your Michael Browns, like your Eric Garners, and soon to be Akai Gurley. The city's going to come in with a big, nice cash settlement, buy off these black females, and then they're going to go back to being the mammies for the Democratic Party. And because they control the purse strings in the black community, you won't see any real change regarding black rights. And this is where the Afro-American black man, really needs to wake up, because as long as his woman controls the purse strings in the black community, he cannot gain any sort of political power or political traction. The Black Lives Matter movement is pretty much controlled by black women. The black economy is controlled by black women. And if we're going to deal with the issues that relate to black men being attacked by the police or attacked by racists, what we're going to have to do is create our own movement and put our own platform on the table, because you cannot go to it and have a movement controlled by black women, because again, your black women has been pretty much bought off. I look at these cases, and in every case, this Afro-American woman has been pretty much bought off with a cash settlement, and she continues to pledge her allegiance to a Democratic Party that pretty much has done nothing for African Americans. I look at the case of Michael Brown, and it pretty much shows me, from top to bottom, we cannot deal with these liberals anymore. These liberals have pretty much shown their true colors and how they feel about African Americans, and in their eyes, black men's lives do not matter as long as they have the allegiance and the economic support of African American women. The life of the African American man has absolutely no value whatsoever to them.